All right, finally. That thing up and running. All right, here we go. All righty, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. How's everybody doing today? Shout out to everybody that's here. People that are coming may come by later. Gonna do a little tech talk here with my main man, SAVAGEYOOGER. I see what's up, I Die. How you doing? DJ Almighty Spartan, the Almighty Spartan God, already throwing shots. Switch has no games. What's going on, Uncompetitive? Big shout out to you, Uncompetitive, for hosting that free smoke there I was getting yesterday in Gran Turismo. Streamed it. Hopefully everybody enjoyed it. It was fun. So I enjoyed the tracks. More tracks on there than I had anticipated. And like I said, I hadn't played that in a while. So, but it was fun to play. And I didn't do too bad for a man with a gamepad or joystick, whatever you want to call it. And there were some people on that track. They had $1 million cars. I'm talking about they had $1 million cars on that track. So, and what is happening, everybody? Rate the Emperor. Oh, what's up, Ryan the Professional? But we are here. We're gonna do a little tech talk here with SAVAGEYOOGER, who has been gracious enough to join us on his time, because he's out on West Coast time. Of course, I'm on the East Coast. But shout out to everybody around the world. Uncompetitive says we beat him easy. Well, remember Gran Turismo, the goal was just to have a good, clean race. I think that final race we all did, I had a clean race. There was one race where I can't remember, there was a guy, he had a Porsche, and he would not let me pass him. I even when I got on his side, finally he tried to come over across, and I pitted him into the rail. It's like, damn, man, my car had more muscle. He was not letting me go past. So, but yeah, good time. Hopefully everybody can watch that stream. It was a blast. And if you don't have Gran Turismo, think about picking it up and play it online maybe later on, maybe sometime this week. I know it's Sunday. But Savage, go ahead and shout yourself out. Shout yourself out, brother. Go ahead.
Hello. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, no problem, man. Thanks for coming on. And it was short notice, and I do appreciate it. So, yeah, we want to talk about some of these techniques that some of these developers are using to get to 2160p and things like that. So, we'll start with the we'll start with checkerboarding. Or now, let me ask you: is the checkerboarding and dynamic to get to 2160p? What are some of the techniques that some of these developers are using on both consoles to help achieve that mechanism that we're enjoying?
They have a dynamic resolution for one. I mean, of course, native resolution, or dynamic, or checkerboarding, or certain different forms of like an upscale type of technique to lower resolution.
Okay.
Excuse me.
So they're starting at a base. They're getting a base resolution. Let's just say it's 1440p. That's their base resolution. So what are some of the things that they use checkerboarding? How exactly are they getting it to go from this base resolution from 1440p to up to 2160p through a checkerboard technique? How are some of the developers doing that?
Well, with checkerboarding, it actually essentially the native pixel count is still the same as like a native resolution. Like if you have a checkerboard 2160p, the native pixel count is 2160p. It's the pipeline that's behind before it renders out the pixels. Excuse me. It renders in a checkerboard mesh and uses data from a previous frame to do that. But when it gets to the pixel rendering of it, it actually renders out the same amount of pixels as if it was rendering it natively.
Okay, and because it's checkerboarded, it's using a source from a previous screen. It's not considered a native picture because it's mimicking. Is that the easiest way to go about saying it?
Essentially, it's doing like every other section, and then
Right.
you think about it like you like two opposite checkerboards. Like you take an photo or whatever, but you take two checkerboard uh, images essentially that are checkerboard on different ones, and you merge them together.
Okay. All righty.
If you have a checkerboard image and you have two of the same frame, it's essentially rendering one half and then the other. So essentially, you're getting basically in the same, just about the same as a native resolution. It doesn't look as sharp as a native resolution, but it's basically no different than rendering a native resolution.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I want to say. So the checkerboarding is a neat way. And another thing, the checkerboard is going to hold the buffer. It's going to hold the 2160p buffer if that's its checkerboard target. If it's a 1080p game and checkerboard is a 1440p, it will always hold the 1440p buffer or 2160p buffer. Is that true, or will it change depending on what's happening?
They can use a dynamic buffer. I mean, Destiny 2 for the PS4 Pro uses dynamic buffer with checkerboard rendering, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, for the most part, it usually is a locked frame buffer.
Okay, now you mentioned dynamic. So let's take a game like Assassin's Creed Origins, the latest one that came out. So everybody that's played it, if you play it on an Xbox, it's dynamic 4K. So it's rendering at what's its render point? Is its top render point, or where they start at is 2160p? And then why is it a dynamic? Why is it dynamic versus a checkerboard? What is it going to do differently?
Dynamic, there's the dynamic resolution or dynamic frame buffer. Usually, dynamic frame buffer results in only one axis changing, but really all it is it's just based on GPU load, or there's certain games actually like Redout for the Xbox One X. It's the developers set out courses in that game, like sections that it's pre-rendered regardless of GPU load, that it's got to render at this native resolution. So one section while you're driving, while your car is in that section, it'll render out 1080p, and then the next section will be 1440, and then 1080 and 720, 1728 or something like that.
Oh, so it's going to slide around henceforth. So it's always going to. So dynamic is always my understanding of dynamic, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that it'll start like you said. Let's just say it starts at, let's just say 14. I'm gonna use my favorite one, 1440p. So let's just say the game starts at 1440p dynamic, but then a tumbleweed blows by, and then all of a sudden it go from 1440p to say 1422 because it has to account for the tumbleweed. Is that kind of, is that kind of what's going on there? Versus if there's no tumbleweed at all, it's just me looking up right at the screen, or if it's my character looking straight ahead, nothing is going on. The screen will be 1440p, so it will maintain that resolution until a dynamic action on screen takes place. That's my understanding? Is that in essence what's happening, or am I reading too much into it, or am I flat out wrong?
Well, okay, with dynamic resolution, it depends. Very rarely, but it can be on a game that essentially you sit still and nothing happens. Like you can look at a wall, and the resolution can change, but that's based on the game engine, and that would be optimization problems. But yeah, for the most part, it's basically based off of GPU load, the amount of effects or what it's got to render, depending on what type of pipeline it's rendering usage, rendering technique it's using. It will change the resolution based on GPU load. It will go up higher if it has overhead, or go lower if it doesn't. Unless the developer locks the resolution at a cap peak, then it won't go higher. It'll only go to the highest, whatever the developer locks it at. And will go lower than that when the GPU.
Okay. No, that's fine. All right. So what is we all know that we'll move to Spider-Man on the PS4, which is according to Insomniac is gonna render at 1440p, but through temporal injection, which is I'm assuming that's a different technique. It's going to the final result, if you have a UHD screen, will be 2160p. So how, and they've used this technique before. Blue Point's done it on as a Shadow of the Colossus. They've done it, and the aforementioned Insomniac, excuse me, they did it on Ratchet and Clank. So how exactly are they taking a 1440p image and then getting it to output on the television screen at 2160p? According to Insomniac, which is fine by me. I'm not calling them a liar. I'm just trying to figure out this in layman's terms, if you could, how exactly they're able to do this.
Okay. Yeah. Insomniac came up with the name temporal injection because they used it for Ratchet and Clank. It's been used, like variants have been used, like with Ubisoft games. The Division and For Honor have used it, but they have their own version of it. Insomniac Games uses it for Ratchet and Clank and Spider-Man, and Blue Point used Insomniac's actual, like, I guess, code. They got their code from Insomniac to use temporal injection for Shadow of Colossus.
Okay.
Now, what it does is it renders out at the native resolution, whatever it is. Ratchet and Clank is native 1800, Shadow of Colossus and Spider-Man are native 1440p. And it takes that native rendered image and injects it into a 4K frame buffer and uses data from previous frames to enhance it, so you won't get aliasing or artifacts.
Okay.
So it comes out cleaner than whatever the native resolution is. It comes out cleaner, but it's not as sharp or as clean as a native, like 2160p.
All right, so it's kind of it's so when you hear people say, or when you have seen people probably, on social media, things like that, saying it's been downgraded, are they correct that it's downgraded, or it's just not reaching 2160p through a native resolution? Therefore, since it's using in this case, temporal injection, it's technically not downgraded. It's just using it's just using another technique to get there. Is that what they're doing?
Well, at the pro reveal, Cerny talked about that they were using temporal injection for Spider-Man.
Right.
So essentially, as far as resolution, there's no downgrading there, because since the announcement of the Pro, they've said it's gonna be using temporal injection, 2160p. So
okay,
there would be no downgrade as far as resolution goes.
Yeah. No, I don't. I agree. I'm just trying to figure out now. Somebody wanted me to ask something about DCI. I think it was Spartan God says that.
I think he's referring to delta color compression.
Okay, now he said the pro bandwidth clock is using DCI. Well, what exactly is that? And he said in the yeah, I don't mind that. Yeah, if you want to talk about DCI and DDC, I have no idea what that is. DCI to me, that's something that's used in movies. Like when they filmed the Avengers movie, the camera they used was a 4K camera, but DCI, that's like true 4K. That's 4K at 4096. That's that kind of a technique. That's way technical. But yeah, go ahead with the DCI with the bandwidth clock. So what exactly is this helping the PlayStation do?
Okay, it's delta color compression. It's DCC for short.
Okay.
It's a AMD technique that's embedded with Polaris. It was already established before. It was really
Okay.
improved with Polaris. Sony really implemented it. I think they actually implemented the Vega tech of DCC. I'm not sure with it. I'm not sure if that's one of the things they used, but they wanted to utilize delta color compression with Pro. And that might have been one of the reasons also why they didn't. Personally, I would say, I think they should have added more RAM, but that might have been one of the reasons why. Because if you use
Hmm.
delta color compression, what it is delta color compression actually, with less than a 0.1% a hit to performance, it actually minimizes bandwidth by 30% on frame buffer, alpha transparency, is probably like HDR, stuff like that is really easy to work with. And you can add in a fill rate with like textures and stuff like that. It can reduce it with less than 1% to hit to performance on the compression technique used.
Okay. All right. So now IDI saying that the checkerboard rendering process is more refined on the Pro because it has hardware. It has a hardware ID buffer that allows more precise prediction, and you get less artifacts and greater accuracy. Well, I mean, it depends on the studio, but yeah, that's
Well,
my understanding.
that's the hardware in the Pro itself. If you have a checkerboard method that you use, the code, the Pro will actually track certain vectors on the vertexes, and it can predict where they're going to be for the next checkerboard image. So essentially, it makes less artifacting more accurate for checkerboard rendering itself. So actually makes it easier for the system to like a better checkerboard rendering for the system itself.
Yeah, yeah. A competitor said it's still lower. It's checkerboard is fake 4K. Yeah, I mean it's not native. It's fake. I mean, that's all I can say. You know, it's like that fake HDR. I mean, if you don't have a 10-bit encryption or 1,000, if you want to call it that, it's fake. I mean, you got fake HDR. You know, that's all I can tell you. It can mimic, but it's not going to give you a great bright picture at it. It's going to be at a lower gamut. But yeah, that's pretty funny. Yeah, fake 4K. We got fake 4K. We got fake news. We got everything. So, but yeah, I get that. I understand that. So we all agree that if it's not a native picture, then it's not going to be as you're going to have you may have an image reduction. So let me ask you this: what do you think's the better technique to use? But if you can't get native, you had a studio, and it's like, well, their software that they have isn't good enough to do a native, whatever, 4K, native 1080p. And what technique would you prefer to use? A checkerboarding technique or a dynamic render technique, or both? I mean, some games you can use both. So
Uh, I would say checkerboard rendering, you still essentially get the clarity of close. Like if you use a checkerboard 2160p, you'll get a better clarity. There is ones that utilize actually bad versions of checkerboard rendering, but games that do that. But for the most part, if you essentially make a good checkerboard rendering, like a 2160p, it'll look better than won't look as good as a native 2160p, but it'll look better than a native 1800p.
right, right.
So I would say checkerboard rendering because essentially you also get reduction with bandwidth too.
Okay, now what do you think about the? Let's kind of change it up here. We'll stay on Spider-Man. What do you? I'm just looking to see if there's any questions. So somebody says they think 4K TVs are a waste of pixels at normal couch viewing distances. Plasma HD is just as good as HDR OLED. And I disagree with that because plasma you get a lot of burn in. Advantage is seen on a computer monitor 3 feet away. Yeah, all right. Well, normal viewing distance, a checkerboard image, it does look like a 4K image. The only reason I'm saying that is because Rise of the Tomb Raider looked the exact same on the Pro and on the X. But let me make this clear. But when the X added HDR, that made it. That's what gives the X the edge at the beginning. And they got it to 4K native and versus checkerboarding. So yeah, you can see what when the HDR with the native picture, you do see a difference. At the beginning, it wasn't like that. Let me keep it a buck, okay? And again, this game came out, almost 3 years ago. So, but yeah, Harry Hamill said 30% is a lot. Well, I found out by putting together trying to build this PC that 30% is not a lot. I mean, that's just what I have found out the hard way. It's a lot on everything else. You're 30% more beer is better. But when it comes to this computer stuff, at 30%, you ain't going to see a huge. I mean, if the 1080 Ti is only 30% better than the 1070 Ti, then they'll say it ain't worth buying. That's just the best way I can, and again, the beauty's in the eye of the beholder. So, yeah. So, but also, all right. Well, let me ask you about the hatred this Spider-Man is starting to get. Is ramping up. About we're 5.5 weeks out. Are you surprised at some of the vitriol that Spider-Man is starting to get?
I'm not sure what you mean. I'm sorry.
As far as the vitriol, the hate, people making videos and stuff like that, saying it's not that big a deal. Are you a little bit surprised, taken back, or are you not surprised at all at what some people are saying about the game?
Kind of. I mean, I don't understand it. I mean, like I've seen multiple people, they posted on Twitter about if Spider-Man was published by a third party, would you be hyped for it? And I've seen quite a few, or I should say at least a couple, not quite a few, but just a couple people say, yeah, like how would that change it? I mean, if it looks like it's made by a good developer and it looks like a good game, there's no BS about it, like with microtransactions, loot boxes. So regardless of the publisher, why should it matter?
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, to me, it's silly. It's like I said. I mean, there's a lot of people who didn't know that Sony owned that IP. They still think Marvel owned it, and Marvel don't. I mean, it's just they're the reason why he's in the Marvel movies is because they made it a shared. It's the same with Incredible Hulk. He's I think owned by Universal. And think Universal just it shares it. They have a good relationship with Marvel. There's no reason, and Universal gets a majority of the sales as far as cartoon. They control that, even though Marvel does the animation, the toys. Universal gets most of that, even though I forgot who makes the toys. Maybe I don't know if it's Mattel or Hasbro. I don't know. Can't remember. That's a deep sweaty cut right there. I have to find out what's going on, Chili Hog. So, all right. So the temporal injection that they're using, they being Insomniac on Spider-Man, what kind of pictures can we expect as far as the clarity? I don't know if you'll be able to turn off a blur effect. You may not be. But what kind of imaging can we expect to get from this game compared to I don't know, another like a Horizon? Because Insomniac's not a first-party studio. So, but compared to like, I don't know, something that a first party studio is going to deliver, will it be something, do you think, and this is an opinion, of course, and do you think we'll get something to the level of a Last of Us, of a Horizon, as far as clarity and the clearness, because they're going to have HDR on this game, I think, as well. So, what are you expecting?
Yeah, I think for the Pro it will. I mean, for the base console, I'm pretty sure it'll be 1080p, and for the Pro, the 21 temporal injection or 2160p temporal injection native 1440 is I think it'll look really clean. And yeah, it won't look extremely sharp, I don't think, but it will look a lot better than a native 1440p. It won't look as good as a native 2160p.
Hmm.
And I'm pretty sure it's native 1080p on the base system.
Yeah, yeah, I'm pretty sure it will be. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it will be. All righty. Well, I'm just trying. I'm perusing the chat to see if anybody's asked any more questions here. I do not see any. So yeah, somebody don't call me daddy. Said he's playing games, not paying attention to the morons. It's a full time job. Yeah, yeah. I second that emotion. So you should see Twitter when I put up there that what Lou Wafa told me about Remedy and Platinum. People are just going crazy. I mean, they're literally just going crazy about this. So, oh well, before we get out of here, but I got the infamous Ryzen CPU, and I've got the AMD RX 580. Shout out to KOIP 901. Now what kind of gaming can I expect on my PC? Because I'm marrying AMD CPU to GPU. So it's supposed to be a perfect marriage. So but what can I expect? What should I be looking for? What do you think?
You could easily
It's just an opinion. I'm not going to hold you to it.
you could easily get 1080 60 ultra settings on all games.
Mm-hmm.
1440 60 probably high settings.
Okay.
Some games maybe it might drop down past 60, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Now go ahead. I'm sorry.
Or you can go for 2160 or do a custom resolution at like 1800p or something and get 30.
Right. Well, now what? Damn, I forgot I was about to ask.
Oh,
Damn,
sorry.
it was a good question. No. It'll come back to me. So you talked about the Ryzen CPU. Okay. No, that wasn't a question. Damn, I can't remember it. Oh my god. So, yeah, the Ryzen things. Yeah, it was on sale, and I went to Best Buy, and I forced them to give it to me for the 149 because that's the price. Everything at Best Buy they match off of Amazon. So because I'm a Prime member, I'm always going to get, because they don't know that, but I'm a Prime member, so they're going to have to give it to me at the Prime price. They can't say, well, it's Prime only, or you're not, or we're not going to match a Prime price. So yeah, I ended up, because it was $205, and I was like, man, I might as well just get the i5. It was, because the i5 was 169, 69. It was 169.99. So I'm like, well, I might as well just go ahead and get that. So where's the outrage for exclusive Marvel VR games? What I didn't know they had any. So hold on. If I buy an AMD video card, you will always be on the hunt for a good driver as new games come. Really? I didn't know that. Okay. Well, thanks for telling me. That's just something I had to know. So, because I didn't know that. So, but yeah, I can't remember the question I wanted to ask. Damn. All right. Anyway. All right. So you said 14. All right. Yeah, I know. All right. I got it. What's the difference in ultra settings and high settings?
For games nowadays, we usually
Like on PC. Like if I were to play The Witcher 3 at ultra settings versus high settings, what would be the differences, I guess, that like, wow, that's a huge.
Witcher 3 is pretty good. Excuse me 1 second. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, what's good, idiot? All right, we're on hold. So very little from high to ultra. Okay, well that's because I'm looking for 1440p high, but if I can't get it, I'll take medium. I don't care. I'm not going to get a new GPU for a while. Yeah. So, but okay. Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
Well, with something like Witcher 3 is actually pretty decently optimized, more favored towards NVIDIA, but You should be
Okay.
able to get 1440p 60 with your 580.
Yes. All right. What about? I'm not holding you, but let me make this clear. I'm not
As
holding
long as
you to any
you
of
don't
this.
have Hairworks enabled too.
Yeah. Now, I said the frame rate hit is large. Well, you mean
Yeah,
if you're at
high
ultra?
high settings are usually optimized for. Ultra
Mhm.
settings, for some reason, they don't really optimize that much anymore.
Right. I know. What about the Anthem game that Fatal Mephisto is going to be buying on? You know, so that's on PC. Based on my PC, what do you think I'll be at? Like 1080p 60, or what do you think?
For Anthem, yeah, probably 1080 60. I don't know
Yeah,
what it's gonna be at when the game comes out because it hasn't released yet. But
correct,
um,
correct,
yeah, I'm
correct.
pretty sure you'd be able to run it at 1080 60 Ultra.
Yeah, I don't know what that means, but yeah. So I need to get minimum a 1080p screen, I'm looking for a 1440p screen. You know, but yeah, that's my first choice. So anybody sees one on sale, direct message me. I'll definitely try to go out there and grab him on up. So yeah, so not a huge difference from ultra to high. Because you said it depends on the game, are already fabricated to do well at a high setting. So that actually makes a lot of sense. So so but all right then, man. Well, Savage, man, it's I'm just trying to see if there's any more questions. And if not, let's see here. Says I might be able to get a PC monitor that does HDR10. Well, worst case scenario, I'll keep my TV because my Samsung TV is a beast. At least that's what I like to tell myself because I got a good deal, and it does HDR10. So you know. So, and it is my 7000 is HDR10 according to my Xbox X. So, and maybe my Xbox X lied to me when I set it up. So it won't be the first thing Microsoft lied about. But what's going on, Bidiot? So yeah, hey, Savage, did you get a chance to watch Morgana Day's video?
No, I didn't.
Oh, and for all you on the chat, go watch that new Morgana Days video, man. I was rolling. Some of the stuff that these people are saying about the Spider-Man PS4. I guess they're talking about the way the console looks, and just people going through it, just having a heart attack because of because of the game. So or because of the console. So it really. I hate to say this. I never thought I'd say something like this. They are now, and like Sick Humor said, they're wanting they said that was it Metacritic? These guys are like, well, Metacritic scores don't matter when comparing God of War to was it State of Decay, but they want to compare Spider-Man's Metacritic scores to Forza 4's. So and they wonder why they get they wet their pants in all these debates they have. It's like you can't say it doesn't count and then say, well, we're going to count it for this. That doesn't wash. See, that doesn't square. That doesn't checkerboard. So all right. So each rendering technique. All right. What is sparse rendering? What is sparse rendering? Is it that much different than checkerboarding and dynamic, or what is that exactly? Because I've never heard of sparse rendering until Microsoft talked about it. I looked it up. Is it just a different mathematical equation to get to 2160p? How is that working? And is it is it just a backup technique? Is this just something that they use for support? Do you know anything about it? Sparse rendering?
Sparse rendering, I mean, it's very variable, but for the most part, it's usually like things like geometry or stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. Like if Gravity Rush 2, essentially, if you want to consider
Yeah.
it, it's using sparse rendering because geometry is 2160p while everything else is at 1080p when it
Okay.
on the passes when it goes through the passes in the pipeline. It'll render things out at different resolutions, and that's essentially what sparse rendering is. Like the geometry, uh, the character models, or you got alpha transparencies or particles and stuff like that.
Okay.
They can render out at different resolutions, and that's essentially really what it is.
All right. Well, no, that sounds very useful. Yeah. Well, I tell you what, bro, man, we're gonna get on up out of here. I do appreciate you being here. And like I said, I know it's 11. It's 11 o'clock on the west side. That's where Savage is. He's over there. That sun is still coming up over the what is it, Ventura Highway and all that kind of stuff. Shout out to America, the band, way before you all's time. Matter of fact, if you play Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, the song "A Horse with No Name," that's by America. So shout out to Raymond Usher before he came down with the herpes for getting that. Because Usher is the reason why your songs in San Andreas and Vice City. He worked for Rockstar Games as he was a executive music. He's the one that procured the music, put them on the different radio stations. He's the guy to help them do that. If you don't know, if you don't believe me, you can play Grand Theft Auto Vice City and you'll see his name in the credits when it comes on. It'll say music such and such. It'll say Raymond Usher. You all just know him as Usher, but his name is Raymond Usher. And remember, he's all about heat. So shout out to him, but that's where that song comes from. So, but all right then, man, Savage, thanks for coming, man. I do appreciate you being here. And I wanted to ask about sparse rendering because Microsoft put the Rs in sparse, but it sounds like Sony with AMD uses a lot of checkerboarding technique, and Microsoft has a separate technique that does the same thing. So that's cool.
Sparse rendering would be more, I think, would be more closer to dynamic resolution than checkerboarding. That would be me personally defining it, but that's just
yeah.
As it's rendering out different things in the pipeline at different resolutions. So I would say that's more closer than dynamic than checkerboarding, personally.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So yeah, Chili Hog. It's a short show. I got some people, they're on their way over to swim, and somebody who lives at the complex has got to be present at all time with your guests because that's just a rule they put in this year. It didn't used to be that way. And but in case something goes wrong, you can be evicted, and I don't want to be evicted, So, but yeah. But all right, guys, we're gonna get it up out of here. Savage, go ahead and shout yourself out again, brother. I appreciate you coming on as well.
Thanks a lot for having me on. And,
man, no problem. Yeah, if anybody else got anything, go ahead. No, go ahead, bro.
I was just saying, cool on getting the Ryzen. Yeah, the 16.
Oh, what now?
Oh yeah, cool. Good job on getting the Ryzen 1600.
Oh well, again, it was luck. I said, what the hell? And in theory, I would have got it regardless because I had it in my Amazon box for $138. But when I went to Best Buy, and because I wanted to see if I could pre-order the Infinity War, I was just gonna go ahead and buy my copy. But I walked over through the PC stuff, and it was sitting there in all its glory. And I'm like, I'll just go ahead and get this. He said I did this stream for no reason. Oh, Uncompetitive said he has a question. So what is your question, Uncompetitive? So it says, is sparse rendering inefficient as it's done? Is sparse rendering inefficient as it's done through software, and checkerboard rendering efficient as it's done through hardware, so GPU is free to do other stuff? That's a question for you, Savage. But basically, is sparse rendering as effective as checkerboarding? Because one is through software, one is through hardware.
Well, essentially, they're both just lines of code. It's just read differently. All it is like through the pipelines. Checkerboard rendering is done further back in the pipeline. Well, sparse rendering is done at different levels. For the most part, I mean, essentially, they could call checkerboard rendering sparse rendering if they want. I think if Microsoft wants to call that. I think they're considering what Rise of the Tomb Raider does on its enhanced mode for the Xbox One X. I think they're calling it sparse rendering.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's closer to a checkerboard type of method rather than like different resolutions of geometry.
Yeah, Yeah, it is. That's a good point because there are 3 modes on the Xbox. You got the 4K 30. You got the checkerboard. I guess it's an open. They did like an open frame, I think, and then
Yeah.
they have a 1080p 60. Which again, I tell people this: if you got that X, download and you got Game Pass, get Rise of, and you have a 4K TV. So you gotta have all 3. If you got all 3 of those, go ahead, download Rise of the Tomb Raider. Turn on your 4K TV. Tell your Xbox X to output at 1080p. All right. And then have the game output at 1080p because then it does all that down sampling that everybody heard about. And then you get a upscale to 2160p through the television. If you do that, you get a fantastic picture at 60 frames per second. I mean, you arguably get the best experience because you get a beautiful looking game and you get a 60 frames per second experience. Now, I don't know what the drop-offs are and stuff like that, but you get a really good experience. So, and a lot of people got so caught up in 4K native, they didn't realize that was available. And I've seen Rise of the Tomb Raider. Again, I like Rise of the Tomb Raider. I know there's a lot of people that hated on it, but there's a lot of, just try that if you have an Xbox X and a 4K TV, and then let me know what you thought about it because it's actually a really good experience. I can't deny it. I was like, wow, this actually is pretty neat. They're taking a 1080p picture, they're outputting it at 1080p. Your TV is upscaling it to 2160p, and then the Xbox is downsampling all this other stuff into the game. And it's just something to try, and you're running it at close to 60 frames per second. So to me, it's the best of everything, but everybody's different. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. So
the hardware itself, like the Xbox One X or the PS4 Pro, will only downscale if the resolution is higher than 1080p. If you have the output set at 1080p, if the native resolution is rendered higher than 1080p, that's the only way it'll downscale.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I got you. Now, what is Chris Jones saying? Jazz has been tossing and turning in his sleep. Yeah, Morgana Days really. If you all look at that video, Jazz's name is mentioned several times. He's blocking more people than the kid named Mutombo. That's all I can say.
Grind My Gears does?
Jazz, the guy, he works for Windows something, Windows Central.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I guess people were ripping on him pretty hard, and he was blocking people. Like, he blocking them left and right. Which I didn't know. It's just, I think he feels like he should be able to put stuff out there and nobody question what he's saying. That's the way he comes across. I could be reading totally wrong. I've never met him. I don't know him. But you cannot put stuff out there and then not expect people to question it. Okay, well, especially if something, and all you have to do if something comes up that says, okay, you were wrong about that. It's okay. He's got a blog or whatever you want to call it. He needs to correct the record. It's okay to print a correction. They've been doing it since the beginning of media. And he acts like, I can't do that. That's unfortunate. So he's still, like you say, he does a good show with Rand. And shout out to Rand Outdoor. I'm going to try to get him on the podcast to talk about the future of Xbox. And but yeah, from him, because he is the man with $1 million. There's nobody better to talk to when it comes to that kind of stuff. Because I have no idea, because I'll be on PC. So I would like to know what do you think the future of Xbox is, Savage, since you're on here? What do you think they're going to be doing here in the next, 4 to 7 years?
To be honest, I'm not sure Microsoft's plans.
I know, well, nobody's sure. What do you think?
Well, no, that's like I can understand like Sony. I can kind of have a theory of Sony's plans. But Microsoft, they're unpredictable for me. It's kind of making me worry.
Right.
I don't. This whole thing about the streaming box thing, I don't.
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't believe it.
I don't
Because
either.
what would be the point of them releasing a streaming only box when it will be essentially less powerful than even the base Xbox One, and they can just release an app on it, and they can
Yeah,
stream from that. So I don't see why there would be a reason for releasing a streaming only box when you can just download the app.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, they said that they're going to bring the app to the cell phone at E3 this year, so I'm pretty sure they're going to
True.
bring Xbox as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I'm like I said, I'll be on PC, so I'll be playing at 1440p. I'll be happy, jumping up and down. They'll be on Twitter arguing. So but yeah. So but yeah, I'm gonna get Metro. That'll be on PC, I assume. And I can play with that because I have a giant rat. That's all I'm wanting. I will stream the giant rat and then I'll be done. That'll be it. I'll be all right, that's the end of my stream. So yeah. So I'm not saying they want live on every device. Yeah, I mean that's I can see that too. Yeah, that's what I personally think. They want to put live on every device and then this, like Savage says, stream. So but we'll have to wait and see. So but I like that he's tossing and turning about that Spider-Man bundle. So also on September 7th, yes, Spider-Man comes out, but it's releasing day on day with the new season of Iron Fist on Netflix. So again, I don't know if you're going to watch Iron Fist, but you see how Marvel's doing that. They're releasing a video game, and then they're also releasing. If you get tired, take a break on Spider-Man, you can go ahead and watch Iron Fist. You know what I'm saying? So another Marvel product. So yeah, so Marvel and Sony, they have a nice working relationship. And then you got the Venom movie, you got the 2 Spider-Man animated movies coming. So, but yeah, Savage, again, thanks for coming on. It was short notice, and I appreciate you being here. Thanks for the questions from the chat. Yeah, keeping it professional, and that's the way it's. Microsoft wants to turn mobile phones into Xboxes. Okay, well, nothing surprises me with Microsoft anymore. Nothing at all. So yeah, so Sony and Disney got a good working relationship, and Disney just bought Fox's properties. We already went through that. So guys, thanks for coming by. Savage, man, appreciate it, man. Don't be a stranger. You can come on through anytime. And yep. Like I said, everybody give hands up, and hands out, and clap for Savage Yuger, the tech guy. We got Savage, the tech guy, and J Dub, the tech guy, and Jabba Jabba the Hot has officially been fired because there's just no way he could be the tech guy. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know if I'd be defined as a tech guy, but thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, but all right, man, Savage, thanks for coming on, brother. And man, you have a good day, and everybody keep it gaming.
You too. Thank you.
No problem.